The phrase, "the scale is far beyond I think what I imagined when I started this thing," means that the size, scope, or impact of something, like a project, business, or activity, has grown much larger than what the speaker originally thought it would be when they first began. It's a way of expressing surprise or realization about how much bigger or more complex something has become over time.
The scale refers to the size, scope, or magnitude of something.
Far beyond means much more than expected.
What I imagined means the speaker's initial expectation or vision.
When I started this thing means when the speaker first began the project or endeavor.
In short, it's a reflection on how the project has grown in ways that are bigger or more complex than the person originally thought. Imagine a business owner who started a small business and is now surprised at how big it has become. When I first opened this little bakery, I thought I'd just be serving locals. Now, I'm shipping cakes across the country. The scale is far beyond, I think, what I imagined when I started this thing. A friend is talking about how their personal hobby grew into something much bigger than expected, like a blog turning into a large online community.
Your blog has grown so much. Did you expect it to be this popular?
Not at all. The scale is far beyond, I think, what I imagined when I started this thing. I thought I'd just have a few readers, but now thousands are visiting every day.
In these examples, the phrase is used to express how someone's project or endeavor has grown in ways they didn't anticipate when they first started. It shows a sense of surprise and acknowledgement of the unexpected growth or complexity. The phrase, "I was an only child, had an entrepreneur father who ran a small business," is used when someone wants to describe their family background, specifically that they grew up without siblings and had a father who was a business owner. This phrase provides context about the person's upbringing and how their father's career in entrepreneurship might have influenced them. When you say, "I was an only child, had an entrepreneur father who ran a small business," you're sharing that you grew up without siblings and that your father was self-employed, managing a smaller-scale business. This often suggests that you were exposed to the challenges and independence of running a business from a young age. Imagine you're explaining your childhood to a friend and how it influenced your perspective on work.
I was an only child, had an entrepreneur father who ran a small business, so I was always around his work. It taught me a lot about responsibility and dedication.
You're having a conversation with a colleague about what shaped your work ethic and interests in business.
Did your family's background play a role in your interest in starting your own company?
Definitely. I was an only child, had an entrepreneur father who ran a small business, so I grew up seeing the hard work that goes into it. That really influenced me.
In these examples, the phrase, "I was an only child, had an entrepreneur father who ran a small business," explains the speaker's family background and how their father's entrepreneurial role played a part in shaping their views on work and life. The phrase, "my mom worked for my dad," is used to describe a situation where someone's mother was employed or helped out in their father's business. It suggests that the father ran a business or organization, and the mother contributed by working in it, either in an official capacity or informally helping out. When you say, "my mom worked for my dad," you're explaining that your parents not only had a family relationship, but also a professional one, with your mom directly supporting or working for your dad's business. It gives a picture of their work dynamic and possibly their home life as well. You're talking to a friend about your family's business background.
Growing up, my mom worked for my dad at his law firm. She managed the office while he handled the legal cases.
You're having a conversation with a coworker about how your parents balanced work and family.
Did your parents work together?
Yeah, my mom worked for my dad in his restaurant. She handled all the finances while he took care of the kitchen.
In these examples, the phrase, "my mom worked for my dad," is used to explain how the mother had a role in the father's business or professional life, adding a layer of understanding about their work and family structure. The phrase, "I sort of naturally as a kid was good at computer science," means that when someone was younger, they found they had a natural talent or ease in understanding and working with computer science concepts, without much effort. The person is implying that this ability developed early in their life, almost without trying too hard. When you say, I sort of naturally as a kid was good at computer science, you are expressing that, as a child, you found computer-related subjects or activities easier than others might have, and it felt like a natural ability. The phrase sort of adds a casual or humble tone, suggesting that the person didn't have formal training but still found themselves skilled in that area. You're discussing with a friend how you got into your field of work.
I didn't really have to study too hard when I was younger. I sort of naturally as a kid was good at computer science, so I just went with it and ended up pursuing it as a career.
You're chatting with a classmate about how you found your passion for coding.
How did you get into programming?
Well, I sort of naturally as a kid was good at computer science. I started playing with computers when I was really young, and it just stuck with me.
In these examples, the phrase is used to explain a natural aptitude for computer science from a young age, indicating that the person didn't struggle to understand it and enjoyed it as a kid. The phrase, I would spend my summers learning how to code as a kid, means that during their childhood summers, this person dedicated time to learning programming or computer coding. Instead of typical summer activities like playing outside or going on vacation, they focused on developing their coding skills. When someone says, I would spend my summers learning how to code as a kid, they're explaining that they used their summer breaks, a time usually reserved for rest or fun, to learn a new skill, coding. This implies that coding was a big interest of theirs, even at a young age, and they chose to work on it consistently during their free time. You're talking with a friend about how you developed your coding skills early on. While other kids were at the beach, I would spend my summers learning how to code as a kid. I think that's when I really got into programming. You're in a conversation with a colleague who is curious about how you became a software developer.
Wow, you seem to know so much about coding. When did you start learning?
Oh, I would spend my summers learning how to code as a kid. I just love figuring out how computers worked.
In these examples, the phrase shows how someone devoted time during their childhood to building up their programming skills, indicating both passion and determination from an early age. The phrase, I voluntarily went to see an alcohol counselor, means that the person chose on their own to seek help from a professional who specializes in dealing with alcohol-related issues. It emphasizes that they weren't forced or required to see the counselor, but rather made the decision themselves. When someone says, I voluntarily went to see an alcohol counselor, they're sharing that they took the initiative to get help for their drinking or alcohol-related problems. The word voluntarily highlights that it wasn't due to pressure or obligation from others, but a personal decision to seek guidance or support. You're talking with a friend about how you started your journey to overcome alcohol issues.
I was struggling with my drinking habits, so I voluntarily went to see an alcohol counselor. It was one of the best decisions I've made.
You're discussing personal growth and mental health with a colleague.
I noticed you seem much more in control these days. What changed?
Yeah, I voluntarily went to see an alcohol counselor a few months ago. I realized I needed help before things got worse.
In these examples, the phrase highlights the person's willingness to seek help on their own, reflecting personal responsibility and the desire to improve their situation without being forced by others. The phrase, she listened to me empathetically, means that someone was listening in a way that shows they truly understand and share your feelings. It implies that the listener wasn't just hearing the words but was also connecting with the emotions behind what was being said. When you say, she listened to me empathetically, you're describing someone who not only pays attention to your words, but also makes an effort to understand how you feel, showing compassion and care. Empathetically comes from empathy, which is the ability to feel what someone else is feeling as if it were happening to you. You're telling a friend about a difficult conversation you had with your mother.
I was feeling really down about everything, but when I talked to my mom, she listened to me empathetically. It made me feel so much better.
You're sharing an experience with a colleague at work, talking about a supportive friend.
I was so stressed after the meeting yesterday.
Yeah, I could tell something was bothering you.
I talked to my best friend last night, and she listened to me empathetically. It really helped me get through it.
In these examples, the phrase emphasizes how the listener was deeply engaged, understanding the emotions involved, and offering comfort just by being present and caring in the conversation. The phrase, "I had to spend my summer in rehab after my freshman year," means that the person had to undergo rehabilitation, often for substance abuse or addiction, during the summer after their first year of college or high school. Rehab is short for rehabilitation, which is a program designed to help people recover from addiction or other serious issues. When someone says, "I had to spend my summer in rehab," they are sharing that instead of doing the typical summer activities, they needed to take time for treatment or recovery. Rehab is usually a place or program where people receive therapy and support to overcome struggles like alcohol or drug addiction. The phrase emphasizes that this was something they needed to do, likely to regain health or stability. You're explaining a challenging period of your life to a friend who didn't know about it.
It was a tough time for me. I had to spend my summer in rehab after my freshman year. I was struggling with some personal issues, and it was the best decision I could have made.
You're having a conversation with someone who is going through a similar situation.
I'm thinking about taking a break from school. I've been dealing with a lot of stress and bad habits.
I understand. I had to spend my summer in rehab after my freshman year. It really helped me get back on track.
In these examples, the phrase reflects a moment of vulnerability and openness, where the speaker shares their experience of going through rehab and how it was a necessary step in their personal journey toward recovery or self-improvement. The phrase, "I've been telling myself that for years at that point," means that someone has been repeating a certain thought or belief to themselves for a long time, by the time a particular event or realization occurs. It's often used to explain how a person has been convincing or reminding themselves of something over a long period. When you say, "I've been telling myself that for years at that point," you're talking about a belief or message you've been mentally repeating for a long time. By adding, "at that point," you're emphasizing that this process had been happening before a certain moment or event. It's usually something important or self-motivating, but it could also be a self-doubt or something the person wanted to believe but wasn't fully acting on. You're talking about a personal belief you held for a long time before finally acting on it.
When I finally decided to change careers, it felt surreal. I had been telling myself that for years at that point, but I never had the courage to actually do it until then.
You're having a conversation with a friend about a goal they've been working on, but haven't fully committed to.
I really need to start prioritizing my health. I've been thinking about it for so long.
I know the feeling. I had been telling myself that for years at that point, and it wasn't until I got sick that I finally made changes.
In these examples, the phrase reflects a sense of long-standing internal dialogue, where someone has been thinking or convincing themselves of something over time, but it takes a certain moment or event to make them fully act on it or realize its significance. The phrase, "I think our relationship really started to build as we got to know each other better," means that as two people spent more time together and learned more about each other, their bond or connection grew stronger. It's a way of describing how a relationship develops over time as familiarity and understanding deepen. When you say, "Our relationship really started to build," you're talking about how a relationship has grown or strengthened. The phrase, "as we got to know each other better," explains that this growth happened because both people spent more time learning about each other's personalities, thoughts, and feelings. It's common in friendships, romantic relationships, or even professional relationships.
You're talking about how you and a colleague became closer friends after working together for a while.
At first, we were just coworkers, but I think our relationship really started to build as we got to know each other better. Now we're good friends.
You're explaining to a friend how your relationship with your partner became stronger over time.
It seems like you and John have such a strong relationship. How did it happen?
Honestly, I think our relationship really started to build as we got to know each other better. The more we talked and shared, the closer we became.
In these examples, the phrase reflects the natural development of a relationship over time, emphasizing how getting to know each other on a deeper level helps to strengthen that bond.